Our journey, CareZapp, probably started just about a year before local Cornerstone journey. So one of our big first customers was Cornerstone, and we joined them and started working with them smack in the middle of them doing all this change. So you can imagine what happened in terms of the technology and the challenges that we had in relation to that. But at the end of the day, that was probably one of the best things that happened for some of the technology that we're working on, because it gave us a very different view of how we need to be able to integrate this into what actually happens on a day-to-day basis. In that journey, we've changed as well. If you haven't gathered the accent, it's from Dublin. So we were founded in Ireland, but we're now part of Vitatech. We were acquired October last year by a company called Vitatech, which is part of the Insights Group, and we're based in Stirling. So we're now 40 plus people who are working in this space, in this technology, specifically looking at health and well-being, social good, and making a better working life, and how can we make changes in that space. So CareZapp, we're about how do we take all the people and the services that are out there, how do we start to try and connect those together, how do we do this with smart technologies so that we can actually deliver real outcomes, better outcomes, and make this more affordable to care. Because there's huge challenges in that space, and technology has a place to play in supporting that with the human factor. So seeing as I'm keeping you from coffee, I thought we'd talk about robotics and artificial intelligence and all those type of things, but we won't. This is experiments. You'll hear about robots this or robots that and all the other things. That's not what's happening on the ground on a day-to-day basis. This is what's happening on the ground on a day-to-day basis. So how many people here have a smartphone? Anybody who hasn't got a smartphone? How many people here have some sort of Internet of technology, Internet of Things technology in their home, a smart thermostat or a doorbell with a video, or some of these other things that are happening? This is what's happening. How many people here have spoken to Alexa, Siri, or Google Home? That's the reality of what's happening out there. So everybody here has more technology than social care has. Most of the people that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis has more technology than social care has. You know, if family members come and look at the supports and services that are provided and say, but you can't do this, or can't do that, or can't do all these other things. That's what you're faced with on a day-to-day basis. So we look at technology from that perspective of what can we do with real-time technology, with technology that is basically becoming mainstream out there, and how do we turn it into supports around safety and security for an individual in their home, or wherever their home is. How do we turn that into health and well-being for that person? How do we turn it into communication engagements between all the disparate groups that are out there around that person who can build a support network around that individual? And how do we get them to communicate about the person? How do we get family members to be part of that person's care team and all those other elements? And then other than that, how do we actually contribute to the learning and contribution that that person, that individual can make to the world, to their own space, to whatever? Maybe they want to learn how to do something, maybe they want to connect with something. How do we make part of technology and part of the human factor services that are out there and bring them all together on that type of basis? So I'm going to give you two examples of this in real life. One is with Cornerstone. So the challenge here was overnight supports. Overnight supports currently are on a one-to-one basis. And because of changes in legislation and changes in living wage and all that, this was becoming a very, very expensive service and supports. It is an expensive support and service. So how do you change that? How can you bring something together that at the same time family members are very concerned about you removing a one-to-one care support? How can you bring technology in there that can actually make a difference to that person or those individuals? So we worked with Cornerstone to deliver overnight response. We did quite a bit of work into it, launched it last November in North Lanarkshire. Basically what they can now do is, with 4 people, 2 teams, 2 people on at night time, they're able to mind a cohort of 9, 10, 18 people in a locality. They can get to them within 15 minutes or less at any point in time, which is typically quicker than most other response services, because of the LCAS services or these local Cornerstone teams. They have access to their locality and they're able to respond on that type of basis. The technology can tell them, is the person up? Are they in their bed? Have they an incontinence? Has there been some other factor? Have they spent a long time in the bathroom? Has the front door open? Has all the other different factors? What's the environmental factors? What temperature is it in the house? Has a smoke alarm gone off? All these other factors. So the technology is sitting there being able to tell them all that information, and it comes directly to a screen to them, and they can respond individually into that person there and then. We trained up ordinary support workers to use technology. You know, they now install the technology. They look after battery maintenance. They look after the day-to-day platform on a day-to-day basis of how they use the technology. They're able to tell us what the technology needs to be able to do. We've made it part of their training curriculum in parts of the training academy within Cornerstone of how they make a difference here. And these are just some of the things that they start to learn. So not only has the nighttime response team being able to see some of this, now the daytime response team is being able to see this data and the information. It can tell them real-time information about how that person's getting on or not getting on a day-to-day basis. And it brings different insights to that whole care package that we brought around for an individual. And it's made a huge difference in the places that it's actually gone into. Not only that, it's been delivered with 40 to 60% savings on overnight responses. Now, for anybody who knows the cost of that, they're significant in terms of the actual cost savings that you can make on that type of basis. So what you're trying to do from that is introduce new support packages that could redirect some of that funding into other localities or other to support other people or to bring other supports for those individuals on that basis. Another example of the technology coming into play is homelessness. Simon Community operate a number of hostels throughout Glasgow, and in this case it was basically they were having people die in service. Last year they had 9 people. By the time they were talking to us in March, they had already had 5 people up to that stage who died actually during the night due to new drugs that were on the street, varied to Prozac, which is basically people stop breathing during the night. And they came to us and said, we need to look at some sort of technology that can give us an early intervention or early opportunity to come and support these people in terms of in their beds at night, without them having to wear something, without them having to have something obtrusive in relation to them. So we were able to bring in technologies on the same type of thing, which basically measures heart rate and breathing rate in continuous basis without touching it. And then people can come in at any point in time from a monitor and see that their breathing rate or their heart rate start to drop, and they can make an early intervention into that person's life in terms of outcomes. This is saving people's lives. But again, with simple technology, we've been able to introduce it, but just bringing it together in a simple platform. So what's the opportunities here from this? Huge opportunities around the individual, giving them choice, allowing them to create their own personalization and building a focus on the service and technology. We don't come into Cornerstone about technology. We come into how do we partner together to deliver a service into the local authorities, into the HSCPs, and into the individuals themselves. So it's about the service they get, not the technology. The technology is just part of that, and being able to support them. And that gives huge opportunities for the individual themselves. It's about reducing risks on a continuous basis within anybody's home. We know the environmental status of that home. We know whether that person's active or inactive. All this other information that can support them in decision making in terms of that person's care. Better outcomes from the individual point of view. Independence, driving independence for the individual. You know, most people don't have to have somebody with them there all the time. The technology can support them when they don't have somebody. If they feel the need that they need to contact somebody, they can press a button. And immediately somebody's going to be talking to them in relation to that. So in terms of this, in technology-enabled care and support services, we see the opportunity to be able to connect all the different disparate groups that are out there together. Care managers, your pharmacy, local community and support services, all these other people together, and build this network of care around an individual such that you can improve that person's individual care, improve the supports and cares that they get in different ways and different functions. From a systems perspective, it's been challenging. It remains challenging. This is new models of care and support. So instead of your telecare devices going off to a call center, and that call center then will call 2 or 3 people and all these other factors, this is the local LCAS teams, the local support teams being able to make their own decisions in terms of how they support that person. So how this is reimbursed or how this is built into support packages has been challenging in some of the areas that we've been working. But then there are some innovative HSCPs that have come in behind all this and started to work with it. And we're on a number of frameworks and we're able to try and introduce those change. But it's also looking at things like clustering care. So in a locality, you'll have a number of different people coming under the same care package instead of an individual hour basis in terms of that. We try to look at how do we do that. At the same time we do that, it's no good for us, even as a technology provider, and particularly where we're partnering with providers. That's what we do. We don't sell directly, we partner with the providers. If there's not sustainability there for the providers themselves, how can we continue? So we've got to look at how do we make this sustainable for the providers and being able to deliver these services and supports, but how do we also make it affordable from the commissioner's point of view as well? So all those challenges come together in terms of it. Technology helps the individual or the people to try and be able to do that. There's a huge exercise to happen in raising awareness. Most people don't know what care and technology supports there to be able to support them. There's a huge thing in changing behaviours. One of the biggest challenges we had at different times coming into different teams and all that was, am I going to lose my job? This wasn't about losing your job, this was basically about coming in and supporting your job. It was actually about enabling you to be able to do a better job because you have better data and better information on a day-to-day basis. We do a lot of work in trying to build capabilities and skill sets. So one of our team is embedded within Cornerstone on a continuous basis as a customer support person. And she goes around all the branches and all the teams, educating them on technology-enabled cares and support, getting them to utilize the technology, setting up demonstration units and all these other things, so that we have impact on a national basis in terms of doing all that. The biggest part of all this was raising awareness and disseminating those learnings on an internal basis. So Cornerstone's a big organisation. As Mary's indicated, they've got 10 branches, they've got 2,500 people. So there's a huge exercise in just educating the organisation in terms of that. Never mind educating all the HSCPs and all the other providers outside of there. So it was a case of, what's possible. And the more and more the type of these events or videos or other things that we put up and the other details in relation to that just indicate what's possible. The stories about Simon community and all these other things will come into play when people hear about what the opportunities are, what technology can do. We've also worked with Cornerstone to introduce a tech champion in each branch. So there's at least one person in each one of those branches that knows about all this technology, knows all the different types of technologies that you can bring to the table, and makes it part of that care plan for the individual. What can tech be? Is part of every assessment now is a big part on tech, and how can that come into play for that individual, whether it's practical or not practical. In some cases it won't be, in some cases it will be, and how do we bring that to them? And the other part of all this is then upskilling people, not only just upskilling the staff and the leaders, but making it part of the continuous training and working that we do with the individuals. So it's now part of the curriculum within the training academy that you can get qualifications utilising the technology and upskill the person individually themselves within their teams and within the other areas. And anybody who's done this or come to it, like we had people who started in this that little or no knowledge of technology beyond Facebook. Now they'll tell you what's happening with the individual on a day-to-day basis, looking at the technology, looking at the different sensors and the information that's coming into them. So imagine an environment where you had all these technologies, where you had smart TVs and all these other connected devices and all these other elements together, and on a continuous basis you could be making that person's individual life way, way better. Imagine building those type of buildings. We built this one in 2010. It's in the northeast of Ireland. It's called Great Northern Haven. It has 2,000 plus sensors across the different parts of that 16 apartments. Older people, 65 and older, have been utilising that type of technology since then. The biggest thing they can do is serenade each other with their smart TVs across the balcony. Somebody can play Pericomo on one level and somebody will play something else on the other. So technology is not the barrier. It is not the barrier with the older people, it is not a barrier with people with learning disabilities or the other factors. It's basically how to integrate it into the supports and services. That's CareZapp, and we're here to improve people's life.